Paige Trevor, and I'm a professional organizer, and I've been one since 1999. And I also am a certified parent educator, and I also used to be on the board of Guy Mason, and my kids with Allison's son went through Stoddard, and it's just so nice to be back in Guy Mason for a new reason other than a birthday party. We're going to talk about decluttering, and it's just a really good topic. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a little visioning first, and then we're going to talk about the difference between decluttering and organizing. And then I've got 5 global tips that I have figured out over the years helps people organize a junk drawer, their garage, their day, their calendar, and they're very reusable, so hopefully you'll find them helpful. And then I like to always talk openly about the obstacles, what gets in our way, because organizing and decluttering is a lot like working out. We all know what we need to do, but it's really, really hard to do it. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll do another visioning. Well, actually, we're going to do both visionings at the same time. Okay. So the first thing I want you guys to do is there's a reason that you came out on this beautiful spring day in addition to the lovely snacks and to see each other. But I want you to imagine in your mind that cluttered part of your life, and I want you to close your eyes. Great. So if you guys don't mind shutting your eyes for a minute and conjuring that place, and get in there and think about how long it's been that way. You might think about how many times you tried or how many times you said you were going to do it, but you didn't. And we'll just stay there for 20 more seconds. Okay. Now, let's get out of there real fast. And I want you guys to tell me about how you feel. What emotions come up when you're in that cluttered space? Yep.
Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. And you can just shout them out.
Anxious.
Anxious.
Drowning.
Drowning.
Tense shoulders.
Tense shoulders.
Tense stomach.
All right. Then I'm going to just flip all these at once. How are you talking to others? So sometimes I do this talk for parents, and when we're in that decluttered space, we usually talk how to our children. What's our tone of voice when we're facing that decluttered space?
Probably tense.
Tense.
Critical.
What?
Critical.
Critical.
Angry.
Angry.
Lazy.
Lazy. Did you say lazy?
Lazy.
I love that. My kids used to say that I could sniff out relaxing because I called lazy I called relaxing lazy, and they're like, you could smell it. Like you could just sense if somebody was going to relax for a minute. And then what tone of voice are you using? It's kind of all the same. Critical.
Stern.
Stern.
Exasperated.
Frustrated.
Exasperated.
Exasperated.
Unpleasant.
Unpleasant. And then, what kind of things are you saying to yourself, about your character, and about your life? I'm lazy.
This is hard to do.
This is, this or
No.
that. Okay, good.
You should.
You should.
Why can't you?
Why can't you?
And the why would be, as we age, some things just hurt, so emotions hurt.
Yeah.
Pain.
So real physical pain.
I'm going to.
I'm going to. When are we going to? That's such a great inroad. When are you going to?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? When
Next
else are we going
week. My
to?
next day's off, next week.
Next year. You know, my favorite one is when I feel like it, which is half past never. We never feel like doing the things we've been avoiding for a long time. And by the time something gets cluttered, it's because we've been avoiding it. So I call this like dirty energy. This is like the oil industry. And you can use it to get going, but it causes a lot of collateral damage and pollution. And so decluttering is a way to access clean energy, and we will do that visioning exercise after we go through this process. But I like to point that out, that there is, through your stuff, there is access to new ways of thinking and feeling. And a lot of times we're stuck because we keep repeating this pattern over and over. Does that sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Too many memories.
Yeah.
Memories from the past. Are you going to throw it away? Are you going to give it away? Is it valuable? Is it for donations?
So many decisions, and I say that professional organizers are the turpentine to your guys' psychic goo. And all of our stuff has psychic, like, goo on it, and my stuff has my psychic goo on it, so I can see, I just use humor a lot, but I can see my crazy when it's through somebody else's eyes. And so when somebody comes and is non-judgmental, they can help you make those decisions, but because it feels hard because decluttering is hard, but not impossible with some of these things. All right, so I just want to talk briefly about organizing versus decluttering. So organizing is getting things that you want to keep in an order and a place where they're easily retrievable. So you can have a lot of stuff and be organized. Decluttering is making room for the life either that you currently have or the life that you want. When we hang on to the old stuff for a life that is no longer our current reality, that becomes clutter. And then it is all that like black energy. Is anybody here like naturally organized, but maybe have a lot of clutter? Yeah, because they're different things. And I know people too who are naturally uncluttered but disorganized. So you just want to break those things in two different spots, because if you start a project and try to do both, you're going to end up being frustrated. So decluttering is what we're talking about today. All right, so the first tip is to be realistic. And I think reality, we fight it. We just fight it. And I go to people's houses, and so the first one is the space you have is the space you have. People hire me, and once you hire someone and you give them money, you relax. Because you're like, they're going to solve my problems. It's going to be amazing. And I go to their houses, and they have 100 books in a bookshelf that fits 25, and they think I can organize their way to fitting all their books. But it's called reality, and the space you have is the space you have. And it's really a great friend if you walk hand in hand with it. You don't always like it, but it's always helpful. The next one is the time you have is the time you have. So do people ever start a decluttering project and get everything out and make a bigger mess, and then you run out of time or energy, and then you're defeated, and then you go back to the cycle? Yeah, lots of nods on that one. For sure. That's another thing. So that's another thing, professional organizers. I'm not trying to sell myself, but just saying it's a skill. That's another skill, is to estimate how long a project's going to take. And this is my equation for that. However long you think, multiply it by 2, and however much energy or time you think you're going to spend on it, divide it by 2. And then add 10 minutes to every project once you've done that equation so that you can take the trash out, put the donations in your car, and set the recycling out and move all the things in that space that didn't belong there to their homes where it belongs. Okay. And then you need to expect and plan for bumps in the road. Well, this is actually from parenting talk. But you have to sort of make room for your own emotions. So that tantrums piece. Do you guys ever have tantrums over having to get rid of stuff? And you're like, but I don't want to, because I want to keep it, but it doesn't fit. So you have to make space for the emotional process of what this is. And you want to buffer in that extra time. That's why it's always double what you think and you have half the energy that you're expecting yourself to have. And then this is just more of an organizing tip, but this is really just an aha moment for, I have a lot of clients that have gone to Harvard Law School, but this is news to them. If you take it out, somebody has to put it away. And it's they're like, what? And it's true. And then you want to focus on progress. Does anybody know Marie Kondo's method? Yeah. And Marie Kondo, first of all, has the best title of a book ever. And but her process is to take everything out and spend a whole weekend decluttering your stuff, which is a solution, but it's not usually very realistic. So that first tip is be realistic, and the second tip is less is more. And that is really just a great mantra to have access to. And you don't have to have it for every single problem, but a lot of times less is more for things like fitting things in in your bookshelf. And it can be hard for people, but it is just a really great way to look at it. Does this resonate with anybody, or do you not like that tip?
That's good.
Yeah. And so when you look in a junk drawer, if you don't know where to start, you can just start with less. So a lot of times, who has trouble getting started with something? And the reason why we have trouble getting started with decluttering is usually because we want to know where we're going to end up and we want to have all the answers. But I don't know where I'm going to put the string. But I don't know what I'm going to do with the dishes that don't fit in here. And when you start, you can just start with, I need to 30% less in here, so I'm going to take everything out, and then those decisions will happen later. If you live with other people, it's always best to get yourself organized first. It's always easier to nag other people than it is to do things yourself. Does everybody agree? I did lots of parenting classes for parents when my kids were at home, and I just really, I don't want to be braggy, but I really shined. And then I would get home and I'd be like, oh, I'm not allowed to yell at you, and now I have to be a parent, but it's just much easier to tell other people what to do than it is to do it. But, so that's just a tip if you have other people, but starting with, well, where would you guys even want to start? What are the projects in your current life that you want to start? A closet? Countertops in the kitchen? The bathroom, and what part, the medicine cabinet or the whole thing?
Countertop, actually.
The countertop.
Basement.
Oh yeah, basements and attics, that is just, and the thing about basements and attics is because you don't walk by it all of the time, you can ignore it for a while, and things can get worse and worse and worse down there, and then you're repelled by it. So, yeah.
Top drawers of dressers, something small.
Uh-huh.
Start with something small.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
they can see every day.
Yeah, and that's exactly where to start. I always want to start for people either in their kitchen or in their bedroom. And I think bedrooms should really look like hotel rooms, because when you're sleeping, your stuff talks to you. And you may not hear it clearly, but it talks to you, and it says lots of different things, and it talks differently to different people. So your bedroom, is anybody's bedroom need a reboot? Is anybody's bedroom, like, if I don't know where to put it, I put it in my bedroom? Okay, so stop doing that right now. And you can put it in the hallway outside of your bedroom, but I want you guys to think of sleep as really the most important thing you do for everything else. And if your environment is saying to you, so like, what does your clutter say to you? We went through this list, like, I'm not good enough, I should, and why don't I, and I can't. And so if you have a pile of I can't right before you go to bed, and you wake up to I can't, it just slows you down. So we really want to start with bedrooms and also kitchens, since we interact with kitchens every day. So pick one of those things. And you start in one area and then work out in concentric circles from there, because everybody learns as they declutter as they go. And so so people start with trying to think of where the end is, but really starting just by sorting is a really great thing to take home with you. And sorting can be, so like, what's on your countertop, Allison? I'll pick on you.
A lot of snacky things, you know, like, which could just as easily be put in the cupboard, but I have them there to snack on, but they're there. And
Yeah.
And little things I don't know what to do with are just sitting there.
Yeah, so little things that are saying I need a different home, but I don't know where to go.
And I don't have the time or the mental energy.
And then anything, I like to give people a list of like questions to ask about objects, and the questions for different clients are like, in this pile of paper, do you think you're gonna find $10,000? Do you think your passport is in this pile of paper? Is there, it might be, and some people, so you know that term, like I always say, we have to go through everything because there might be a golden nugget, right? There might be, and I actually was with a client a couple weeks ago, and do you know what we found? I kid you not, 2 golden nuggets someone had mailed to her and taped inside her card. And I wish I had a photo of it. But it is real, like it happens, you find stuff. But you start, so I might say with stuff on the counter that doesn't belong there but doesn't have a home, that might be a really good candidate for just throwing in a basket for later on. And sometimes if you containerize things, which is currently don't have a home, and I like to put an expiration date on things. So I think to myself, if I haven't used this by Glover Park Day, then I'm gonna just chuck it. Or, and then you don't have to decide later on. Things with countertops, the idea is to always, don't ever put anything down that isn't in a container on a counter. And I'll tell you why, is, you know Malcolm Gladwell? And he did this research that as soon as there's a broken window in a neighborhood, it's pretty soon filled with crackheads and, you know, unsavory things. And if you prop something up in front of the books on your bookcase, right, you just like, you get a photo of your grandchild and you're like, oh, it's so cute, I'm just gonna pop it up here in front of these books. You have just invited the crackheads and the drug dealers to come to your bookshelf. So stray things that aren't in a container, they're just unsavory characters that need to be corralled. So you could get just your little treat bowl, and whatever fits in there, that goes back to tip number 1, reality. The space you have is the space you have, and leave it in there. Same with bathrooms. And the idea isn't that your countertops never have anything on them. The idea is that when you're ready to clean up your kitchen, you're always 15 minutes to totally clean and the counters how you want them. It's not about being totally perfect all the time. It's just, am I 15 minutes to getting this where it's ship shape and I won't be embarrassed if people come over? And where are you not gonna put those things? Where is Allison not going to put those things that she finds that don't have a home?
In the bedroom.
In her bedroom, no more. Everything gets kicked out tonight. Okay, so I don't know, this is now aging out, this is the office, but I always think with decluttering or organizing tips, Sometimes you do things in a way that the experts don't tell you to, but if it works for you, don't worry about it. So, for example, this little note up here is, you know how you're supposed to do all your dishes before you go to bed? And I really, really tried to be that person. Hard for years and years and years. And I realized, you know what, I'm not that person. And so now I just leave. I don't leave it gross or anything, but I don't totally clean it up because it's not broken and I get up in the morning and I do the dishes. So again, if your bedroom doesn't bother you, although, no, actually I'm gonna take that back. You're not allowed to have your bedroom be a mess because it's bad for your brain. But if you don't corral everything on your counter, that's okay if it works for you and your life is 15 minutes to being ready for having somebody over. And then we have start with today. So you want to create systems for what your current reality is. A lot of times we were to start a project and, I don't know, photos. Do people have any photo projects? And so you're like, I'm going to start in 1972, and then I'm going to work forward. And then you go back to 1972 and you're like, this is so overwhelming. Instead, I always say start with today. So as you get photos, like on your phone or however you're getting them, start with organizing what is coming in today. Same with mail. Don't go back to your old bills. Just start with today, open everything up, recycle most of it, and put it in the bills folder or in the to-file folder, and then recycle the rest of the stuff. But if you go back through the archives, you'll just get really into the quicksand of all of this stuff. Questions? Furrowed brow, I saw, yeah?
You're saying that when you get today's mail, bring it up, sort it, act on it. Don't go back to other old bills that are sitting there unpaid, just leave them there.
How long have they been there?
Well, I don't know, I'm just hypothesizing.
Yeah, okay, so, yes, that's exactly what I would say, because you know what energy source we want to go for? We want to go for somebody who opens their mail. So just using the mail as a topic. And if that stack of mail has been sitting around for a few months, absolutely, I would say get a Whole Foods bag, put it right by where you open the mail, have a file for your bills, have a file for to be filed, and I guarantee you that 80% of your mail is what? Junk. So it goes right in the recycle bin. So I like to just take my mail and go right somewhere. I don't have to bend down, I don't have to go anywhere, I can just open it all up before I take my coat off, and it's handled. And then once I've done that for a week, and of course, if I know property taxes are due, right, of course I'm gonna dig through and do that, right? I'm not gonna ruin everything for that one thing, but the idea is that you wanna see yourself as somebody who's decluttered and organized. And once you see yourself that way, then your thoughts are on your side, and you're like, oh, I know how to open mail now. I know how to process mail. I know how to process paper. I'm somebody that processes paper well. And then you can go back to the archives with that skill set of processing paper.
It also stops the clutter from building up.
Absolutely.
Get rid of it right away, and then you can do it.
Yeah.
I do what you suggest on the mail.
Yeah.
I have a folder where I sit down and it says now, next, whenever.
Great.
So, during commercials I can go through the whenever.
Yeah?
But, so in other words, it's simply a folder that is marked with those now really means now.
Yeah. Now, did everybody hear that? She has a folder now, next, and never. Or not never.
Whenever.
My love language is throwing things out. And so that would be, never is the best, because then you can just put that right in your recycle bin. That's a great one. And the idea there, too, is that deciding and doing are two different things, and you don't have to do both at the same time. So that's why starting a decluttering project with simply sorting, that's doing, you don't have to decide yet. So we can separate deciding from doing, because one of them always gets us in trouble and we don't like it, we don't do it, and then we end up with clutter. And so then as you find a system that works for you, then you can start going back through your archives and making that work. Okay, and then you have to speak nicely to yourself. Even if it's been a problem for 40 years, the mean to speak to yourself is, does anybody speak meanly when they're like, yeah, you're like, I'm just motivating myself. But it's really like all the research shows that self-compassion and not being unrealistic, not like, oh no, that looks great, you don't have a problem, but really being like, of course I have too many clothes, I just moved apartments and my closet's a third smaller. Of course my countertops are, filled up because this thing changed and that's why I haven't solved this yet. Or if it's a really long-standing problem, you can go back and examine a little bit why you did it that way. Like sometimes we don't declutter because someone in our past either threw our stuff out. Did anybody have somebody that like decluttered for them and it was super upsetting?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's like a real violation. That's a great word. That is a real violation. It is emotionally really tough. And sometimes we don't need to declutter that until it ripens. And then sometimes once something ripens, it just falls off the tree. So sometimes, not every time can help us with those things. But I also think that reality really helps us. And I say that in the sense of, this is how much space I'm gonna keep for memories. And whatever fits in here, but I can make that decision and then have like a security blanket for a couple months to put in my calendar, look at security blanket stuff that's under the bed. But I think with decluttering, we look at it as so black and white rather than a process of honoring, sharing, getting rid of, and that a little fraction of it's hard. And you'll be good at decluttering once you're really willing to make a mistake. And you're gonna be sad that you decluttered a thing or two. Like, I'm really sad I just got rid of all my kids' t-shirts. I really wished that I had kept a smattering of them and got it made into a quilt. Like that, I'm like, next lifetime, I'm gonna make a note for the next lifetime, that's what I'm gonna do. But most of the time, I love my home office that was my child's room. Right? Question?
I was going to suggest something. I have the same inclination, holding on to things like my daughter's little patent leather Mary Jane phones. So what I ended up doing, I took them, polished them up, put them in a little Michael's black velvet frame with a shocking pink bow, and they became, I gave them to my daughter as a gift, and she just moved, and I realized she's got it on display. So things that really matter can
So
become
you
art.
kind of want a like little tear of like just
Yeah.
beauty, like that.
So I didn't throw her shoes out. They became,
Yeah, absolutely.
Just donate.
Yeah, you can donate too, for sure. Absolutely. But I do think that there's a great book called Shed, and it's written by, have you seen that book, Allison? It's by a professional organizer, Julie Morgenstern, and she's got this little process, and she's a really strengths-based professional organizer, so there's no shame involved at all. And it's just like how when we go through life changes, the objects that we need change, and it takes you through the process to do that so you can let the new stuff in. Because it's all about just getting that energy flowing.
I'm sorry, what's the name of the book?
Shed, S-H-E-D, Shed. And, okay, and then this goes with memories, and you described this perfectly. So if it's worth keeping neatly, nicely, with integrity, so it lasts and so it can be found. I go into a lot of homes and people save those baby clothes that I just said I wish I'd saved, but it's like they're from the Gap. Nobody's gonna wanna probably wear them when they have kids. The way our consumer culture is, they wanna buy new stuff But the stuff you want to keep, you want to make sure you keep in like an acid-free box that that it's neat and it's tidy and someone can find it and use it again if that's what you're keeping it for. Because keeping things in plastic bins and being like, they might want this one day, they don't want it if it's in a plastic bin. If it's in a framed thing with shocking peak background, they absolutely will hang that like in their living room, somewhere fabulous. All right, and then novelty and change keep you motivated. So this is a dynamic process, and sorry. You want to, does anybody like buy things to declutter? They're like, I'm gonna go to a container store, and that's pretty much gonna solve it for me. And I always think like the exchange of, I had to do something for my business that I was avoiding. So I hired a consultant, and I paid them money, and then I put a label, like a professional label on a file, and I'm like, my work here is done. But like you still have to do the thing, even if you hire somebody or buy stuff. So it's not gonna fix things, but there is nothing like a fresh, new, tidy, beautiful box with a nice label on it that says, Theo's pre-K through 6th grade art, right? And then whatever fits in that reasonable box is what I'm gonna save, and I'm gonna get rid of the rest. So you want to have some novelty and change, but the Container Store, they probably make a lot of money with the aspirational decluttering, but it's not really how you declutter. Questions from this? Yeah.
I learned from my daughter, I think the younger folks know better than we do, all these upcycling and exchanging. Like, she hardly ever buys my granddaughter clothes. She gets them from groups that she belongs to.
Absolutely. The Facebook Marketplace, I know the kids, like, that's how they get their furniture now. There's something called Free Cycle, and you can put your stuff out. Does anybody know about Green Drop by the old Lord and Taylor's? It's like the most satisfying thing ever, is to put a bunch of stuff in your car and drive to Green Drop and drop it off.
What sort of items?
Like anything, like clothes, books, toys. I don't think they don't want furniture. Because I take a lot of client stuff because I'm like, it's so satisfying, I'll donate anything. And I have these big giant bar stools, and they're like, no, you can take those home. So I put them in the back alley here in Glover Park, and they were gone in 2 days.
That's a long time.
It was a long time, they were not that
30
nice.
minutes or less. So
But they weren't, yeah.
The secondhand stores will actually pick up on your front porch.
Secondhand stores, you have a name of one to give people?
Was it VBA veterans?
Oh, the veterans, yeah, they'll come and pick stuff up, yeah.
And you don't even have to be home, just leave it on the front porch.
Yep.
Community forklift will take anything, furniture, tools.
Where is that?
And they'll pick up.
Community forklift, it's called. I don't know, you could probably just, yeah.
Wider circle.
Wider circle. Wider circle's choosy, which is fine, but it's not like, I just like the super satisfying, don't look, don't talk, just drop. And the library takes books, and yeah.
So Green Drop is still available?
Yeah.
Yes. And
I once put my mother's old lounger chair on the front porch so someone would take it.
Yeah.
And what I found instead was somebody else brought their mother.
You never know what's going to happen when you declutter. It's so exciting.
I need a list of where you take these.
Yeah, that's a great thing. We, Erin, we could work on that.
Yeah, definitely.
We can. We'll do that, and Erin will email it to you. That's a great idea. Yeah, put together a list. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so let's start with today. So here are the common organizing pitfalls and speed bumps. So this is just a really long way to say, like, people sometimes get hung up on how to get rid of stuff. And this was written for, so this is the story I always tell. I had a client, and she was getting rid of a tea bag, a used tea bag. And she ripped off the tea part and put it in the compost. She took the staple and put it in the garbage, and she took the paper and put it in the recycling.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't have time for that.
Oh my God.
And like, that's totally fine as a solution if you have time. But when you're decluttering, you want to give yourself lots of options about how to get rid of things. Yeah.
I want to say that that person is being incredibly responsible about recycling and reusing, and it probably fits a very high value that they have.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they're doing something that really means a lot to them, and it's also good for the environment.
Absolutely. And if you can't go in your basement because you have too much stuff, you just want to consider, and again, I do that now with my tea bag, although I don't recycle the little thing, I throw out the staple, but I absolutely, now that the compost gets picked up at the farmer's market, I absolutely throw all my tea bags in there. So I'm not being critical, I'm just noticing that sometimes for this purpose, we slow our own life down. And it's not always necessary. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
which farmer's market recycles compost in our area?
I go to, well, yeah, walkable, I go to Palisades. So from 9 to 1, every Sunday, you can take your stuff, and I know on Connecticut Avenue, they have a different day, but you can go to like the DPW website, we'll find that too. But yeah, you can just throw your compost, and I have a little compost bin on my counter, and then I have a metal bin with a lid and then a handle so, rats can't get in there, and it's great, and I definitely do that, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it just sounds like that person needs to, they can still do that, but train themselves to do it right away, not tossing the tea bag aside to do it later.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it isn't, like, this isn't one or the other, it just is, I just thought it was a funny story, but people really, like, they get really slowed down by the perfect giving away. And listen, I'm all about saving the planet. I think living in Glover Park is like the biggest gift we're giving the planet, to live in small houses and walk places. So it's not about that I don't care about the planet, it's just that your everyday life matters a lot. And sometimes when we get decluttered, we stop buying so much stuff to fix problems that can be solved with declutter, and at the end of the day, I always think that's a better return on investment than getting rid of everything perfectly. So it's just a tip, it's not the tip, so if you don't like it, you can declutter it. And when we get our feelings hurt by imperfect systems, we give up. And we're like, it didn't work. This was dumb. That was bad advice. And then we go back to being ourselves with all the stuff that we get mad at ourselves for. So you want to give yourself a little time to practice to see if that system works for you. And then we think organizing and decluttering is a sidebar or optional task or something unpleasant and boring. Do you guys like, it's unpleasant, it's boring? And I think one great tip is just to offer you the thought that it isn't. Just try it on, like we're at, Nordstrom's trying on clothes. Just try on the thought, decluttering is energizing. You might not go to fun right away. Like, I see somebody's messy desk and I'm like, this is so exciting. I love everything about this. And then I get to know the person and I see all the good they're doing in the world and I don't have any judgment about it. Like, it's great. Like, I want for you to live your life. That's what I want for you. And you can see people's treasures and what they're good at and what they're interested in. It's really great, but they see their desk and they're like, I'm a bad person. And we want to get rid of that, and we want to realize it takes time, and it's time well invested. So does anybody have thoughts that you could replace your thought of this is boring and I hate it? You don't have to keep that. Thoughts are free. So we can go to the thought store and just try on a new thought. It's no big deal. But we don't have to go to the bargain basement of old recycled thoughts. We can leave those there and then go to like the Bergdorf Goodman of thoughts and try that on and see if we get a new energy. from it. Question?
Well, an unintentional consequence when I started, right now I'm in the midst of going through all my parents' things, which is, but when I was doing my own stuff, I lost weight.
Lost weight by, and do you have any aha, and that's not unusual.
I just was like, what's going on here? Some more clothes went out. I think one of the things that I have found helpful is to keep reminding myself, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And
That's a really good
sometimes
thought.
I try to pretend I'm somebody else when it comes to things that have a lot of emotion and try to look at it through different eyes. I also put the onus on my brothers in that, what do you want? Do you want any of your books? Do you want any of your toys from when you're little? If I knew who gave them a gift, I gave it back to the person saying that they loved it, they it gave them a lot of pleasure. But when you feel that because you expended time, energy, effort, money to give them that, you should decide. You put it in the garbage,
Okay.
not me.
So those are so many skills and options that you used in that scenario, right? So you didn't do it alone. I don't have to do it alone. I can ask my brother questions, right? You also didn't need to be perfect. And yeah, and I find too that like helping somebody else declutter is so much easier than decluttering yourself. So you guys might want to pair up in little pals and go over to, because it's just really fun to go into somebody's cabinets and be like, oh, let's get in here and get going. But your stuff, you're like, no, I have to keep that one. No, I have to keep that one. No, don't touch that one. But they can help you. So that's just a lot of skills, and you practice the skills because you had a real project you had to do, and I bet you've learned a lot.
I still do have the project.
You still have a project to do, yeah.
It's slow, but
It is slow because that psychic goo
The
slows you
emotional.
down. And absolutely. And really our stuff came to us because we were fixing a problem. And so we have too much of that thing because we were trying to fix a problem. Not because we're bad or lazy or whatever reason we've pinned on ourselves, but we were fixing a problem and now we just need to fix a new problem. And that's another thought when you go to the thought store, is how am I gonna feel after? What's gonna be the reward of this? And do you think to yourself, I'm gonna open my closet every day and I'm gonna be like, I'm a person who has the right amount of clothes in this size closet. I'm the kind of person that hangs stuff up. I have 2 boys in their 20s and I'm always like, hangers are really an older man's game. Because when they were teenagers, like hangers, they were very confused by them. So, but I went to one of their apartments and they had something, they had stuff hanging. I was like, babe. So meaningful. Okay, so here's where the magic is, and then I'll be wrapped up. The magic bubbles up from the bottom. So just like your 3-bin project of photos, it was through the doing that the solutions came up. You probably didn't look at those 3 bins and say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sort out the trash and then I'm going to do this. You probably started looking at them and and I think your body helps you. So getting into motion can really help you with your thinking. So we live so much in our prefrontal cortex, deciding and thinking and figuring it out, when really just standing up, or you can sort sitting down, just sorting. And you can just do the stuff you know. I love this, I'm never giving this up, this I can consider, this I need to phone a friend. Right, who wants to be a millionaire? And call a consignment store, definitely.
See if they'll accept.
Right. Magic comes from the doing, trying, failure, and wrestling. So that's where the 3 bins turned into half a bin and plus joy. Plus a little bit of trash too. I mean, some stuff isn't, oh sorry. Some stuff isn't worth keeping. So there is no book, system, or container that is going to make you decluttered, which is sad. But there are books containers and systems that will help you declutter. And I say, like, go to the library and get some decluttering books, just like a recipe book, and take a few things. Like, when you get a recipe book, if you still get recipe books, I used to get them from the library and flip through them and make a couple and be really happy and return them. And I didn't think I was a bad person because I didn't make everything out of that recipe book. I just got a new recipe book. And I think, like, decluttering books or organizing books, they're just like a recipe book. You're gonna get one nugget for this current season of your life, and then you're gonna move on to the next nugget. And organizing is just like working out. We don't think one sit-up is gonna get us, get our, us squared away. It is like a thing that you do every day. And just like working out, or maybe playing the piano, or maybe reading, what you do consistently and you get better at, you like doing. So how do you feel about your incoming mail with your 3 systems?
Oh, I have no problem with it.
No problem.
No, I don't even think about it.
Don't even think
3
about it.
seconds.
3 seconds. And I think that that's,
And that way, the property taxes can't be put in with the junk mail.
right.
In other words, I can't avoid due. It's just really simple. It just says due.
So, but there's hardly anything in there, I'm guessing.
There's some doing.
There's some doing. All right. But I think there's the magic, right? And it was by repetition too. And I do think organizing or decluttering a little bit every day is better than just doing it once. And one huge decluttering tip that we haven't even talked about, what is like the first thing you can do is stop what?
Bringing things in.
Yeah, just stop acquiring things, magical. And then you like put a tourniquet on the stuff, and then you can work backwards from there. So I think we're at time, and thank you so much, and I hope it was helpful, and I left some, and we'll put together that list for the website about deacquisitioning things.